Hi friends, welcome back to Faith and Arrow Homestead. My name is Jaylee and today we're going to talk about reseasoning your cast iron. I have a video on this channel teaching you how to care for and maintain your cast iron, and even with doing all of those tips and tricks that I covered in that video, there still may come a time when you need to reseason your cast iron. Now if you take good care of your cast iron, it's going to be very infrequently. In fact, it's been over 2 years, I think, since I have last seasoned my cast iron. I can't remember exactly how long, but I want to say at least close to 2 years. I'll have to look back and see when that video, it was at the very beginning of my channel, and we're in our 3rd year with this channel, so around 2 years since I have done a full strip and season of my cast iron. You may not need to do it at all. However, for me, I do a lot of sauces, a lot of tomato-based things, and I add a lot of sugar, brown sugar, maple syrup, honey. I do like a honey soy glazed salmon in my cast iron. And so anytime you have like a sugar like that, you are running the risk of it sticking and messing with your seasoning layer. Same with using acidic foods like tomatoes and things like that. It can mess with your seasoning layer. Also, the fat that I like to cook with most often is raw farm fresh butter, and I noticed that with that butter there is like milk solids left behind more so than with store-bought butter, and it makes my cast iron very sticky. So I'm really creating a situation here where my cast iron needs to be reseasoned, and that's no big deal. You don't necessarily have to like treat your cast iron like it's some kind of fragile, breakable thing. You can go hard on it like I do, and when it comes time, just reseason it. So here I've got an example of both. I need to do both of my pans, but my Lodge pan is definitely the worst out of my 2 cast iron pans. It's really sticky. You can see here where I tried to cook some eggs on it this morning, and it was sticking so bad, and it's overall just very grody and very sticky looking. And so this one needs to be reseasoned. Now, the very first thing that you'll do when you're reseasoning your cast iron is clean it. And so I would put this in the sink. I've got an old Scrub Daddy that is, you can see it's dark because I save it specifically for reseasoning my cast iron. And absolutely, I'm using soap. I'm going to use something like Dawn, something that's like grease busting. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to give it a really good clean. The next thing I would do after giving it a really good clean is strip it. Now, you can remove the old seasoning layer by using chainmail. You can use an SOS pad or some kind of steel pad. I've seen people on YouTube do the salt with the potato. Just whatever you have that will be able to really get in there and strip that seasoning. I'm talking abrasive. You're really trying to get in there. And for me, I was scraping off almost around 2 years of seasoning that has been built up on my pan. So you need something that's going to really get in there. My husband and I just bought a Blackstone grill used off of Facebook Marketplace, and it came with a bunch of accessories, including this guy. This is like some sort of stone on a handle. And this is used to be pretty abrasive on your Blackstone griddle. So I told Tom, I was like, I think I'm going to try it on my cast iron and see if I can't just strip it down really good. So I've already, for the sake of this video, I've already stripped my other pan so that I could very quickly show you. And it actually worked out really well. So you can see here how, are you able on the camera to see the silver underneath? So the black is a seasoning layer that has been built up, and how like the handle is black. They season the cast iron before they sell it. So this already came with a seasoning layer, but on the inside, the seasoning layer builds up and builds up and builds up the more that you use it. And so I used that scraper, that stone, to get down really close. And I didn't get all of the black, and that's okay. You don't have to completely strip it. That's a little excessive. This is great. The fact that I was able to get down to where you can actually see gray is going to give us an excellent opportunity to reseason our pans. So I will go ahead and do that with the second one, and then we will move on to the next step. As you are getting in here and scrubbing this, your water is going to run black, and it's going to be really gnarly looking, and that's totally normal. You are getting in here and scrubbing off all of that old seasoning, and it's going to be pretty gnarly. Now, with my other one, and I will with this, I do go around the edges and along the bottom and scrub those too, but I don't put in as much of an effort to strip the sides and the bottom as I do the inside of the pan, because the inside of the pan is what we're looking to really be non-stick. That's where we want that really smooth seasoning layer. So I'm not done yet. I've already got quite a bit of it off, but I'm gonna go through 2 or 3 times, scrub really hard, rinse, scrub really hard, rinse, until I feel satisfied that we've got quite a bit of that old seasoning off. All right, when you are finished, it's gonna be wet. Go ahead and put it on your stove, just on low or medium low, and let that get this really nice and dry. All right, now it's up to you how crazy you want to get with this step, removing the old seasoning layer. You don't have to get it all. It's gonna be okay, especially if you're planning on doing more than one seasoning layer, which I am. Then it's gonna be all right. We'll fill in the gaps. You don't have to get it all, but I definitely recommend getting as much of it as you can. I dried it once and looked at it, and you could see areas where the seasoning was flaking off, and so to me that needs to be removed all the way. But if there are spots where it's still really solidly on there, then I would just leave it. The only downside to using the Blackstone seasoning stone was that it was really hard to get kind of in the edge here, but I think it's going to be okay. So now we're going to move on to the next step, and that is the oil. But first, let's talk about the oil. So normally I would recommend to you that you use a flaxseed oil. Flaxseed oil is a great oil for seasoning your cast iron, and normally I would use this. It's been so long since I've had to do a full reseason on my cast iron that this is expired by kind of a lot. So I don't want to use a rancid oil. I don't want to run the risk. I know it's in an amber bottle, so maybe it's still okay. But that, I was planning on filming this today, so when I realized that the oil I was going to use was expired, I wondered what I was going to do. You can use olive oil. It's not the best. I've never heard of anybody using coconut oil. Those are the only other 2 oils that I have in the house. And so then I thought, what about lard? Because I've got some leaf lard, some pig lard that has been in the freezer, and I use this all the time. I actually use it to put on my cast iron when I want it to have like a really, really nice non-stick layer on it, if I'm cooking something like fish or something that sticks really easy. And so I already use lard on my cast iron. So I Googled it and found myself a nice little Reddit thread, and I had a lot of people say something that should have been so obvious to me. What were people using to season their cast iron 100 years ago, 200 years ago? Probably animal fat, like bacon grease or lard or tallow or something of the sort. And so why not? So we're gonna try it. I've never done it before. Let's see how well this seasoning process goes using lard. But you can just go ahead and use the flaxseed oil. I've used it many times before, and it's great for seasoning your cast iron. So I'm gonna get a little bit of this in a dish and microwave it. All right, now we are going to take a clean paper towel, fold it over a little bit, and I'm gonna pour, oh, that's so hot. This little jar got so hot in the microwave, so I'm going to use a spoon to put some of this oil, quite a bit of this oil, into our cast iron skillet, and we are going to use the paper towel to spread it around. And we want to be really generous with this oil. We want to get it obviously all along the bottom, but we also want to make sure we're getting it on the sides as well, and even the handle. We're going to do the outside and the bottom. When you are reseasoning cast iron, you are reseasoning cast iron, and you are going to go through and do the entire pan. And look at that. Look at how already how good it's starting to look, and we've only just begun. All right, and after you've oiled it down really well, you're going to take another new clean paper towel and you're going to wipe it all off. And I promise you are still going to end up with a really nice thin layer of oil, even though you're going through and wiping it off. And the reason that you want to wipe it off is because if you put this into the oven like we're about to do with a really thick layer of oil, it's going to get really gummy and really gross, and it's not going to do what you think it's going to do. So you want to go through and wipe it all off and you're going to end up with just a really nice, fine, thin layer of oil on your pan. Beautiful, perfect. So now we're going to put this into our oven upside down, and you can put a baking sheet or some foil underneath it to catch any drippings, but you shouldn't have any because you should have gone through with your dry paper towel and wiped it down really well. And you are going to, with your cast iron in the oven upside down, you're going to preheat your oven to 500 degrees or just as high as your oven will go. And you are going to bake this in there for an hour. I'm going to go through and do that same thing to this other one as well. All right, those have been in there for an hour. So if you're just planning on doing the one seasoning layer, what you'll want to do is turn off the oven and let the oven and the pans cool down together. It's gonna take like an hour, hour and a half. If you are doing more than one seasoning layer like I am, I'm gonna turn the oven down to 450 because having it at 500 makes me very uncomfortable. And I'm going to very carefully remove the two pans because they are piping hot. And I'm going to put them on the back of my stove because it's hot back there. And so it'll help them cool down, but not too quickly. And I'm going to wait for them to be cool enough that I can handle them. And we are going to add another layer of oil. And that is still probably going to take a while for these to cool down enough to where I can actually touch them. So when you are doing this process, you really need to allot some time for yourself. It's actually getting pretty close to bedtime. And so I, have to factor that in, the fact that this is going to be another 2 hours at least, because they need to cool down enough that I can touch them. And then it's going to be another hour of them being in the oven at the 500 degrees. So factor that in when you're doing, figuring out your time for this. But I think 2 layers will probably be good. Ideally, I'd like to do 3. You can do this as many times as you want. I've seen, I saw a funny post online in one of my groups on Facebook. Somebody did 20. They did this 20 times, and it was, oh man, it was the smoothest cast iron I've ever seen in my life. It was beautiful. But for our purposes, 1, 2, 3, 4 times is great. All right, now after 2 coats of seasoning, this is what we are looking at. This is my Lodge one. And this is my Pioneer Woman one. Still not perfect. In fact, I probably could stand to do a third. I think a third coating would really make this perfect, really beautiful. There's still a little bit of unevenness through here, but much, much better than what we started with when I first cleaned and stripped both of these. And it's past 10 o'clock and 9:30 is my bedtime, so we're done for the night. But yeah, those are the steps. It's actually a really easy process, a little time consuming, I guess, because it does need to be in the oven for an hour and then it needs to cool in between. So it can take a while depending on how many coats you want to do. But the overall process of cleaning it with a sponge and some soap, stripping it with something very coarse like steel wool or something like that, doing the thick coat of oil and then going through with the paper towel, wiping it off, putting it in the oven at 500 degrees for an hour, and then letting it cool between layers, between coats of seasoning. And that's how you get a brand new, fresh coat of seasoning on your cast iron. Also, this was a test doing it with the lard instead of the flaxseed oil like I normally would do, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. I did read some conflicting information online. If you're not going to be using your cast iron right away or very frequently, you run the risk of the lard going rancid, but I heard other people say that that's not true, because once you polymerize it, as we did in the 500 degree oven, that is no longer a concern. And I think I agree with that. It's a moot point for me because I use these every day. I'll be using them tomorrow, so it doesn't matter for me. But yeah, I guess do some research on that. I tend to agree with the side that whatever oil you use, it becomes polymerized, so it won't go rancid. I guess the only thing that would be a concern is if you want to go back at the end and put another thin layer of oil on for storage, that could go rancid because you're not heating it at the high temperature. So I would be cautious with that. But Otherwise, you shouldn't have an issue, I don't think. So the lard was a success, and I'm glad. That's what I'm going to do from now on. I don't have to purchase any oils and run the risk of using an oil that is cut with anything. The flaxseed oil is a good oil. Many people actually take flaxseed oil for its health benefits. But you know, you have to source it really well. It could be cut with an undesirable oil. Certainly, please don't season your cast iron with canola oil or anything like that, grapeseed, soybean oil, none of those. If you are catching this video and you've never seen any of my other videos, I'm very much against seed oils, vegetable oils of any kind. The flaxseed oil is one of the few oils that I will use, especially when seasoning my cast iron. But back to the point, if I can use lard, of course I'm going to, because that is straight from nature, an animal product, and it's what our ancestors used to season their cast iron. So I hope that you found this helpful. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you are new, please consider checking out my other videos, and if you like what you see, subscribe, and I can't wait to see you in my next one. Have faith, my friends, and keep moving forward. Bye. I'm cooking breakfast this morning on my newly seasoned cast iron, and look, it's just so beautiful. And I've got a little bit of butter in there. That looks so good, so nice.